gentlemen, the statue wars have begun again. And this time, they've spread to Great Britain. So I was just looking at some news, and like normally nothing this like sort of dumb gets printed in like a mainstream outlet. And I mean, granted, this is the Telegraph, and I'm no expert, but I've not heard great things about the Telegraph. But this article itself, it's interesting. You can't actually read it without like probably starting a free trial and giving them your credit card information. But you know where it is available for free is Snapchat. You know, where everybody gets their news these days. So I've got that right here. Yes, Cecil Rhodes, and it's crossed out for some reason, implying some sort of censorship, I feel like, was a racist. Okay, good that they acknowledge that. But tearing down statues like his is the worst kind of activism. That's going a little fucking far. This is why we need to stop censoring history. And this is really not censorship of history, as we'll probably discuss later. As you can see, the title is, For the Sake of Free Thought and Civilized Debate, Rhodes Must Not Fall. That's a yikes for me, but if you know who Cecil Rhodes is, then you'll understand what I'm saying. So it starts, after the statue of Edward Colston, the slave trader and philanthropist, was ripped down and thrown in Bristol Harbor last week. Okay, do you get to be a philanthropist if you're a slave trader? I'm just saying. I don't know if you get that label anymore. Black Lives Matter protesters soon settled on a new target, the controversial effigy of Cecil Rhodes in Oxford. They revive a long-standing debate about whether we should continue to display monuments of this imperialist in a diverse and multi-ethnic Britain. And they do raise a good point, I believe. Of course, we should examine the lives of complex historical figures, particularly those whom we now regard as morally reprehensible. But that is not what is happening here. Instead, we are witnessing the expansion of a simplistic yet deeply pernicious idea that if we only removed, censored, or reinterpreted parts of our past, that the problems of the present might be lessened. In reality, these largely superficial acts are poor substitutes for building a coherent political program to address current social ills in a meaningful way. Now this is where it gets into like fallacy territory here, seriously. Like, for one, it's equating the removal of a statue which honors somebody with the censorship of history. And nobody is talking about censoring history here. Nobody thinks we should, remove any text about Cecil Rhodes from a museum. Nobody thinks we should censor any information about Cecil Rhodes on the internet. Clearly, the deep state isn't doing shit like that. I can clearly read about Cecil Rhodes and all the awful advocacy for colonialism that he did throughout his life right here on Wikipedia. So I don't understand this whole idea about censoring history, because most people, as it's been said before, this is not an original statement, but most people do not learn their history through visiting various statues. And yet, folks, the statue wars rage on. And the other fallacy here that we should comment on is, it says, in reality, these largely superficial acts, which if they're superficial, why the fuck do you give so much of a shit about them if they're really not that big of a deal at all? Why do you, want to die on this hill so bad? What's exactly the problem here if it's not that big of a deal? And it's also the fallacy, of course, of saying you can only focus on one thing at a time. These Black Lives Matter protesters, now that they want to remove these statues, I guess they're literally not even protesting police brutality or incarceration of young black men or stereotypes and discrimination. Now that they're only the statue people now. All they want to do is remove the statues. It's no, that's not how it fucking works, unlike you, these people know how to walk and chew gum at the same time, meaning they can focus on multiple different things at once in their advocacy. And the statue thing, it's if there was a swastika still up somewhere, you would want to take it down because it symbolizes bad shit. You wouldn't put up a big fuss about how, actually you should really be trying to address the anti-Semitism in society and stuff instead of taking down that swastika. That's such a superficial act. It's symbols do matter to some degree, and symbols are not the only thing these people are focusing on. They do want real change.